Hi, and welcome to Mrs. PM Reads. We are continuing in our story, The Old Man in the Sea. Not sure, well, I know you can see over here. I don't know when you're watching this, but it's kind of harvesting time at this point. And this is some of the basil from my garden that I'm drying out because I had an abundance, which is wonderful. So I have to dry it out so I can use it for probably the whole year. All right, you guys. Anyway, don't be distracted by the basil. We are continuing in The Old Man in the Sea. This is our fourth video. And in the last video, basically, Santiago, the old man, has hooked his big fish. He hasn't actually seen it yet, so he doesn't know how big or what type of fish he has, but it continues to pull him out to sea. And I think we're in day 2 maybe with that. So let's pick it up there. All right. He looked across the sea and knew how alone he was now. But he could see the prisms in the deep, dark water and the lines stretching ahead and the strange undulation of the calm. The clouds were building up now for the trade wind, and he looked ahead and saw a flight of wild ducks etching themselves against the sky over the water, then blurring, then etching again, and he knew no man was ever alone out on the sea. He thought of how some men feared being out of sight of land in a smaller boat and knew they were right in the months of sudden bad weather. But now they were in hurricane months, and when there are no hurricanes, the weather of hurricane months is the best weather of the year. If there is a hurricane, you always see the signs of it in the sky for days ahead, if you are at sea. They do not see it ashore because they do not know what to look for, he thought. The land must make a difference too in the shape of the clouds, but we have no hurricane coming in now. He looked at the sky and saw the white cumulus built like friendly piles of ice cream, and high above were the thin feathers of the cirrus against the high September sky. Light brisa, B-R-I-S-A, he said, better weather for me than for you, fish. His left hand was still cramped, but he was unknotting it slowly. I hate a cramp, he thought. It is a treachery of one's own body. It is humiliating before others to have a diarrhea from pitomaine poisoning or to vomit from it. But a cramp, he thought, it is as a calambre, C-A-L-A-M-B-R-E. Again, I don't speak Spanish. So if I'm trying to do the words as I think they would be. Humiliates oneself, especially when one is alone. If the boy were here, he could rub it for me and loosen it down from the forearm, he thought, but it will loosen up. Then, with his right hand, he felt the difference in the pull of the line before he saw the slant change in the water. Then, as he leaned against the line and slapped his left hand hard and fast against his thigh, he saw the line slowly slanting upward. He's coming up, he said. Come on, hand. Please come on. His hand, like, please work. The line rose slowly and steadily, and then the surface of the ocean bulged ahead of the boat, and the fish came out. He came out unendingly, and the water poured from his sides. He was bright in the sun, and his head and back were dark purple, and in the sun the stripes on his sides showed wide and a light lavender. His sword sword was as long as a baseball bat and tapered like a rapier, and he rose full length from the water and then re-entered it smoothly like a diver. And the old man saw the great scythe blade of his tail go under, and the line commenced to race out. Oh, he is 2 feet longer than the skip, the old man said. The line was going out fast, but steadily, and the fish was not panicked. The old man tried with both hands to keep the line just inside of breaking strength. He knew that if he could not slow the fish with the steady pressure, the fish could take out all the line and break it. He is a great fish, and I must convince him, he thought. I must never let him learn his strength, nor what he can do if he made his run. If I were him, I would put in everything now and go until something broke. But, thank God, they are not as intelligent as we who kill them, although they are more noble and more able. The old man had seen many great fish. He had seen many that weighed more than 1,000 pounds, and he had caught 2 of that size in his life, but never alone. Now, alone and out of sight of land, he was fast to the biggest fish that he had ever seen and bigger than he had ever heard of, and his left hand was still as tight as the gripped claw of an eagle. It will uncramp, though, he thought. Surely it will uncramp to help my right hand. There are 3 things that are brothers, the fish and my 2 hands. It must uncramp. It is unworthy of it to be cramped. The fish had slowed again and was going at his usual pace. I wonder why he jumped, the old man thought. He jumped almost as though to show me how big he was. I know now, anyway, he thought. I wish I could show him what sort of man I am, but then he would see the cramped hand. Let him think I am more man than I am, and I will be so. I wish I was the fish, he thought, with everything he has against only my will and my intelligence. He settled comfortably against the wood and took his suffering as it came, and the fish swam steadily, and the boat moved slowly through the dark water. There was a small sea rising with the wind coming up from the east, and at noon the old man's left hand was uncramped. Bad news for you, fish, he said, shifting the line over the sacks that covered his shoulders. He was comfortable, but suffering, although he did not admit the suffering at all. I am not religious, he said, but I will say 10 Our Fathers and 10 Hail Marys that I should catch this fish. And I promise to make a pilgrimage to the Virgin de Cambrai if I catch him. That is a promise. He commenced to say his prayers mechanically. Sometimes he would be so tired that he could not remember the prayer, and then he would say them fast so that they would come automatically. Hail Marys are easier to say than Our Fathers, he thought. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Then he added, Blessed Virgin, pray for the death of this fish, wonderful though he is. Interesting. With his prayers said and feeling much better, but suffering exactly as much, and perhaps a little more, he leaned against the wood of the bough and began mechanically to work the fingers of his left hand. The sun was hot now, although the breeze was gently rising. I had better rebait that little line out over the stern, he said. If the fish decides to stay another night, I will need to eat again, and the water is low in the bottle. I don't think I can get anything but dolphin here. But if I eat him fresh enough, he won't be bad. I wish a flying fish would come on aboard tonight, but I have no light to attract them. A flying fish is excellent to eat raw, and I would not have to cut him up. I must save all my strength now. Christ, I did not know he was so big. I'll kill him, though, he said, in all his greatness and glory. Although it is unjust, he thought. But I will show him what a man can do and what a man endures. I told the boy I was a strange old man, he said. Now is when I must prove it. The 1,000 times he had proved it meant nothing. Now he was proving it again. Each time was a new time, and he never thought about the past when he was doing it. I wish he'd sleep, and I could sleep and dream about the lions, he thought. Why are the lions the main thing that is left? Don't think, old man, he said to himself. Rest gently now against the wood and think of nothing. He is working. Work as little as you can. It was getting into the afternoon, and the boat still moved slowly and steadily. But there was an added drag now from the easterly breeze, and the old man rowed gently with the small sea, and the hurt of the cord across his back came to him easily and smoothly. Once in the afternoon, the line started to rise again, but the fish only continued to swim at a slightly higher level. The sun was on the old man's left arm and shoulder and on his back, so he knew the fish had turned east of north. East of north. Now that he had seen him once, he could picture the fish swimming in the water with his purple pectoral fins set wide as wings and the great erect tail slicing through the dark. I wonder how much he sees at that depth, the old man thought. His eye is huge, and a horse with much less eye can see in the dark. Once I could see quite well in the dark, not in the absolute dark, but almost as a cat sees. The sun, in his steady movement of his fingers, had uncramped his left hand now completely, and he began to shift more of the strain to it, and he struggled the muscles of his back to shift the hurt of the cord a little. If you're not tired, fish, you must be very strange. He felt very tired now, and he knew the night would come soon, and he tried to think of other things. He thought of the big leagues. To him, they were the Gran Ligas, Ligas, and he knew that the Yankees of New York were playing against the Tigers of Detroit. This is the second day now that I do not know the result of the, I don't know, Juegos, Juegos, he thought. But I must have confidence, and I must be worthy of the great DiMaggio, who does all things perfectly, even with the pain of a bone spur in his heel. What is a bone spur? He asked himself. We do not have them. Can it be as painful as the spur of a fighting cock in one's heel? I don't think I could endure that, or the loss of an eye, and of both my eyes, and continue to fight as the fighting cocks do. Man is not much besides the great birds and beasts. Still, I would rather be that beast down there in the darkness of the sea. Unless sharks come, he said aloud. If sharks come, God pity him and me. Do you believe the great DiMaggio would stay with a fish as long as I will stay with this one? He thought. I am sure he would, and more, since he is young and strong. Also, his father was a fisherman. But would the bone spur hurt him too much? I don't know, he said aloud. I never had a bone spur. As the sun set, he remembered to give himself more confidence. The time in the tavern at Casablanca, when he had played the hand game with the great Negro from Cienfuegos, who was the strongest man on the docks. They had gone one day and one night with their elbows on a chalk on the table and their forearms straight up and their hands gripped tight. Each one was trying to force the other one's hand down onto the table. There was much betting, and people went in and out of the room under the kerosene lights, and he had looked at the arm and the hand of the Negro and at the Negro's face. They changed the referees every 4 hours after the first 8 so that the referees could sleep. Blood came out from under the fingernails of both his and the Negro's hands, and they looked at each other in their eyes and at their hands and forearms, and the bettors went in and out of the room and sat on high chairs against the wall and watched. The walls were painted bright blue and were of wood, and the lamps threw their shadow against them. The Negro's shadow was huge, and it moved on the wall as the breeze moved the lamps. The odds would change back and forth all night, and they fed the Negro rum and lighted cigarettes for him. Then the Negro, after the rum, would try for a tremendous effort, and once he had the old man, who was not an old man then, but was Santiago el Campeon, nearly 3 inches off balance. But the old man had raised his hand up to dead even again. He was sure then that he had the Negro, who was a fine man and a great athlete, beaten. And at daylight, when the bettors were asking that it could be called a draw and the referee was shaking his head, he had unleashed his effort and forced the hand of the Negro down and down until it rested on the wood. The match had started on a Sunday morning and ended on a Monday morning. Many of the bettors had asked for a draw because they had to go to work on the docks loading sacks of sugar at the Havana Coal Company. Otherwise, everyone would have wanted it to go to a finish. But he had finished it anyway, and before anyone had to go to work. So I need to make just a small aside here. This was written in like 1923 or something like that. I'll have to look to be sure, but way when the word Negro was an accepted phrase. There's no racial slurs here. It's just a description of the time period of the man that he was arm wrestling with. Okay. For a long time after that, everyone had called him the champion, and there had been a return match in the spring. But not much money was bet, and he had won it quite easily, since he had broken the confidence of the Negro from Cienfuegos in the first match. After that, he had a few matches, and then no more. He had decided that he could beat anyone if he wanted to badly enough, and he decided that it was bad for his right hand for fishing. He had tried a few practice matches with his left hand, but his left hand had always been a traitor and would not do what he called on it to do, and he did not trust it. The sun will bake it out well now, he thought. It should not cramp on me again unless it gets too cold in the night. I wonder what this night will bring. An airplane passed overhead on its course to Miami, and he watched its slow scarring up the schools of fish. Interesting. Let me get that one again. An airplane passed overhead on its course to Miami, and he watched its shadow scaring up the schools of flying fish. That sounds better, doesn't it? With so much flying fish, there should be a dolphin, he said, and I leaned back on the line to see if it was possible to gain any on his fish, but I could not, and it stayed at the hardness of the water drop shivering that preceded breaking. The boat moved ahead slowly, and he watched the airplane until he could no longer see it. It must be very strange in an airplane, he thought. I wonder what the sea looks like from that height. They should be able to see the fish well if they do not fly too high. I would like to fly very slowly at 200 fathoms high and see the fish from above. In the turtle boats, I was in the cross trees at the masthead, and even at that height, I saw much. The dolphin looked greener from there, and you can see their stripes and their purple spots. You can see all the school as they swim. Why is it that all the fast-moving fish of the dark current have purple backs and usually purple stripes or spots? The dolphin looks green, of course, because he is really golden. But when he comes to feed, truly hungry, purple stripes show on his sides as on a marlin. Can it be anger or the great speed he makes that brings them out? Just before it was dark, as they passed a great island of Sargasso, weed that heaved and swung in the light sea as though the ocean were making love with something under a yellow blanket. His small line was taken by a dolphin. He saw it first when it jumped in the air, true gold in the last of the sun, and bending and flapping wildly in the air. It jumped again and again in the acrobats of its fear, and he worked his way back to the stern, and crouching and holding the big line with his right hand and arm, he pulled the dolphin in with his left hand, stepping on the gained line each time with his bare left foot. When the fish was at the stern, plunging and cutting from side to side in desperation, the old man leaned over the stern and lifted the burnished gold fish with its purple spots over the stern. Its jaws were working convulsively in quick fights against the hook, and it pounded the bottom of the skiff with its long flat body, its tail and its head, until he clubbed it across the shining gold head until it shivered and was still. The old man unhooked the fish, rebaited the line with another sardine, and tossed it over. Then he worked his way slowly back to the bow. He washed his left hand and wiped it on his trousers. Then he shifted the line from his right hand to his left and washed his right hand in the sea while he watched the sun go into the ocean and the slant of the big cord. He hasn't changed at all, he said, but watching the movement of the water against his hand, he noted that it was perceptibly slower. I'll lash the two oars together across the stern, and it will slow him in the night, he said. He's good for the night, and so am I. It would be better to gut the dolphin a little later to save the blood in the meat, he thought. I can do that a little later and lash the oars to make a drag at the same time. I had better keep the fish quiet now and do not disturb him too much at sunset. The setting of the sun is a difficult time for all fish. He let his hand dry in the air, then grasped the line with it and eased himself as much as he could and allowed himself to be pulled forward against the wood so that the boat took the strain as much or more than he did. I'm learning how to do it, he thought. This is part of it anyway. Then, too, he remembered he hasn't eaten since he took the bait, and he is huge and needs much food. I have eaten the whole bonito. Tomorrow I will eat the dolphin. He called it dorado. Perhaps I should eat some of it when I clean it. It will be harder to eat than the bonito. But then, nothing is easy. How do you feel, fish? He asked aloud. I feel good, and my left hand is better, and I have food for night and a day. Pull the boat, fish. He did not truly feel good because the pain of the cord across his back had almost passed pain and gone into a dullness that he mistrusted. But I have had worse things than that, he thought. My hand is only cut a little, and the cramp is gone from the other. My legs are all right. Also, now I have gained on him in the question of sustenance. It was dark now, as it becomes dark quickly after the sun sets in September. He lay against the worn wood of the bough and rested all that he could. The first stars were out. He did not know the name of Rigel, but he saw it and knew soon that they would all be out, and he would have all his distant friends. The fish is my friend, too, he said aloud. I have never seen or heard of such a fish, but I must kill him. I am glad we do not have to try to kill the stars. Imagine if each day a man must try to kill the moon, he thought. The moon runs away. But imagine if a man each day should have to try to kill the sun. We were born lucky, he thought. Then he was sorry for the great fish that had nothing to eat, and his determination to kill him never relaxed in his sorrows for him. How many people will he feed, he thought, but are they worthy to eat him? No, of course not. There is no one worthy of eating from the manner of his behavior and his great dignity. I do not understand these things, he thought, but it is good that we do not have to try to kill the sun or the moon or the stars. It is enough to live on the sea and kill our true brothers. Such a strange way of thinking, but I guess that's the fisherman trade. Now, he thought, I must think about the drag. It has its perils and its merits. I may lose so much line that I will lose him. But if he makes his effort and the drag made by the oars is in place and the boat loses all her lightness prolongs both our suffering, but it is my safety, since he has great speed that he has never yet employed. No matter what passes, I must gut the dolphin so he does not spoil, and eat some of him to be strong. Now I will rest an hour or more and feel that he is solid and steady before I move back to the stern to do the work and make the decision. In the meantime, I can see how he acts and if he shows any changes. The oars are a good trick, but it has reached the time to play for safety. He is much fish still, and I saw that the hook was in the corner of his mouth, and he has kept his mouth tight shut. The punishment of the hook is nothing. The punishment of hunger, and that he is against, something that he does not comprehend, is everything. Rest now, old man, and let him work until your next duty comes. He rested for what he believed to be 2 hours. The moon did not rise now until late, and he had no way of judging time. Nor was he really resting, except comparatively. He was still bearing the pull of the fish across his shoulders, but he placed his left hand on the gunwale of the bow and confided more and more of the resistance to the fish, to the skiff itself. How simple it would be if I could make the line fast, he thought, but with one small lurch, he could break it. I must cushion the pull of the line with my body and at all times be ready to give the line with both hands. But you have not slept yet, old man, he said aloud. It is half a day and a night, and now another day, and you have not slept. You must devise a way so that you sleep a little if he is quiet and steady. If you do not sleep, you might become unclear in the head. I'm clear enough in the head, he thought, too clear. I am as clear as the stars that are my brothers. Still, I must sleep. They sleep, and the moon and the sun sleep, and even the ocean sleeps sometimes on certain days when there is no current and a flat calm. But remember to sleep, he thought. Make yourself do it and devise some simple and sure way about the lines. Now go back and prepare the dolphin. It is too dangerous to rig the oars as a drag if you must sleep. I could go without sleeping, he told himself, but it would be too dangerous. He started to work his way back to the stern on his hands and knees, being careful not to jerk against the fish. He may be half asleep himself, he thought, but I do not want him to rest. He must pull until he dies. And we are going to stop there. You know, for a short story, it's a much longer book than I thought. All right, you guys, we continue to learn more about the fishing trade with each video. I hope you are enjoying the story. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.